Hi everyone, it's Lisa from Lisa's Creative Corner, and I'm thrilled to have joined the creative design team once again for another fun video collaboration. Today, our team will be featuring creative ways to use specialty papers. I've chosen to highlight some fun ways to use vellum in my video. I'll be walking you through the process of making a couple of cards, and at the end of the video, I'll show a few more examples of how to use vellum on your projects. So the first card I'm going to show you how to make is this fun shaker card. So I'm going to start out the card by adhering some pieces that I cut on my Cricut machine using one of the images from Close to My Heart's new Summer Vibes Cricut collection, and I'll go ahead and put a link to this file down below. I also cut a piece of cardstock to make a frame for the shaker card and used the Flower Garden embossing folder to add a little texture to it. Then I cut a piece of the vellum and adhered it to the back of that frame with a tape runner. I'm going to add a little pink frame that I die cut as well around the inside of that opening just to give it a little bit of color and contrast. And now I'm just adding some 3D foam tape to the back of that frame. I'm making sure that it's sealed nicely in the center so when I put all of the confetti in the middle it doesn't come out. I'm going to use the shaker window and confetti thin cuts die to cut out a few little pink hearts to add to the center. So after I use the anti-static pouch to remove any static that might be there, I'm going to go ahead and put those pink hearts that I die cut in the center of my card base along with some silver sequins and move everything to the center as much as possible. And then I'll go ahead and expose all the pieces of the foam tape on the back of the frame and adhere that right on top to complete the shaker portion of the card. And I'm going to go ahead and figure out where I want to put the flowers, and I want to add a little sentiment on there. So I'm going to stamp that sweet little sentiment from the Winged Wishes stamp set onto that little banner cardstock piece that I die cut, which is also included in the design space file that you'll find down below. Now I'm going to just try to figure out exactly where I want each of these pieces and adhere them to the card base with some thin 3D foam tape. And you'll notice later on that I added a little bit of marker to those flowers to give them a little more dimension. So now I'm going to show you another technique where you can heat emboss on vellum to make it look like stained glass. I'm going to use the Shared Happiness stamp set and ink it up with some Versamark ink and stamp it directly onto a piece of scrap vellum. Then I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some white embossing powder on it and shake it off and heat it with my heat tool, just making sure that I don't get too close and stay in one spot for too long or it'll warp the vellum. So now I'm going to go ahead and flip the vellum over and color on the back side. And the key here is to use alcohol markers because regular markers might bleed or smudge, whereas the alcohol dries really quickly. So the alcohol markers work much better on the vellum and they won't smudge or smear. And so the reason I'm coloring on the back side is because if you flip it over on the front side, you can see it's like it gives a stained glass look. And so it looks real messy from the back side. You don't have to be very precise because the front side is where the embossing and the outline is. And so it's kind of a relaxing technique. I really love doing this. So now I'm going to go ahead and die cut the image using the coordinating thin cuts die and cut it out. And it just gives such a beautiful stained glass look. You can see it a little bit better here with the white background. So I decided I wanted to have the center have a darker background, so I cut a piece of dark colored cardstock and I'm going to adhere that to just the center on the back side. And one of the things that works really well for adhering vellum to whatever you want, cardstock or your card base or something else, are glue dots. And these are micro glue dots. These are tiny little micro glue dots. And so the best way to do this is to adhere the dots onto the back of the vellum where you've got an image that's already stamped or embossed, where it's not going to be super noticeable. So you'll notice I didn't put it in the center where the plain vellum was showing. I put it in the corners and then I put one right behind the H in the hello, and you can see I got it a little bit out of that stamped area, so I just kind of smushed it in a little bit with my fingernail and that just hides the adhesive. So now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to add the glue dots to the center of those flowers that are colored in, because you won't be able to notice them from the front side very much, and then add a little bit of tape runner to the center where I have that dark cardstock. And now I can go ahead and put it on my card base, and you can't even see the adhesive. It's really nice. So there's some areas that you'll notice that I missed. So another great way to add these glue dots is to take a piercing tool and just pick up the glue dot with the piercing tool, and then it's much easier to place exactly where you want it. So you can see I just stick it right underneath the glue dot, and then I can place it wherever I want to. You can even run your vellum through an embossing folder and then color the back like I did on this card. Another thing you can do is stamp on the vellum with Stays-On ink, as I did on this card. You can also use it for journaling, running it through your printer and then adhering it with eyelets like on this layout, or with brads like I did on this layout, or you can even adhere it with a tape runner or any adhesive and then just put a photo or a title on top of it so you can't see the adhesive. I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned a few new things about using vellum, and I hope it inspires you to use vellum on your projects as well. Don't forget to check out the other design team members' projects using all kinds of specialty papers, and you can find links to their videos down below. Thanks for watching and for joining me today. See you next time. Bye-bye.